Raging Bull is a 1999 Bolliger and Mabillard hypercoaster located at Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois. It opened a little over a month after the first B&M Hyper, Apollo's Chariot, which is located at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in Virginia. Although Raging Bull is technically a prototype, being only the second of its kind, I find that it stacks up really well to newer B&M Hypers I've ridden. Before I give my full analysis, if you're interested in seeing my thoughts on all the roller coasters at Six Flags Great America, I have another video on my channel where I rank them from my least favorite to favorite. Alright, let's dive in. First, I want to note that Raging Bull's trains don't have seatbelts. I find that this adds to the experience in terms of airtime, but not quite as much when you get a trimmed ride. Either way, it definitely makes the seating more comfortable and open in a positive way. I'm a big fan of B&M Hyper trains. They have some of the most comfortable seats of any ride model, in my opinion. I'm not sure how rare a trimless ride is going to be from this point on. I've only experienced a trimless ride twice, and those were both within a week of each other this year. Since then, the trims have been back on. So throughout the video, I'm mostly going to assess Raging Bull with the trim brakes turned on. When you leave the station, there's a small sloped left turn into the lift hill. The lift hill is pretty standard, not much to add about that. However, the first drop is enhanced by a signature feature of multiple 90s B&Ms, the pre-drop. You dip a few feet down from the highest point of the lift hill, which is 202 feet, before the real drop of 208. If you're in the back row, this is especially nice because the front of the train has already started descending, while the back of the train is just barely making it up to the top. You get yanked over the drop in a sudden way that makes the ride feel more aggressive than it normally is. The drop isn't very steep, but it doesn't really need to be. I find it to be enjoyable no matter which row I'm in, but I'd definitely say the back row is better for the drop. At the bottom of the drop, you speed through a tunnel, which adds to the intensity. A fairly slow turnaround happens after this, but I find that it provides a decent bit of forces, and I really enjoy how high off the ground this moment is. The following drop is nearly as good as the first drop, and the camelback hill afterwards is my favorite moment of airtime on the ride, assuming the ride is trimmed. It may not be the most powerful floater airtime you can experience on a ride, but it does reliably throw me out of my seat for a good 3 to 4 seconds. Another fun drop happens after this hill, and then you climb into another camelback, although this one is banked steeply to the left in a unique way that you don't see on every hyper. I will admit, this hill never gives me airtime that impresses me, but I don't really mind, because the fact that it's banked makes it fun in a different way. It feels a little bit similar to the big wave turn on Orion at Kings Island, though not as fast, of course. I think this moment is probably better overall compared to the wave turn on that ride, since the train takes a little bit more time getting through it. The next drop is solid, although not one of the more noteworthy ones on the ride. Next is another turnaround that, in my opinion, provides some of the best whip on the ride when it's running fast, and the drop and whip into the brake run that follow also have a good bit of bite. At this point, you enter the mid-course brake run, which is where the ride really differs depending on whether you're riding trimless or not. When the trims barely hit, the second half of the ride is almost better than the first, but we'll focus on how it rides when it's trimmed for now, since almost all of my rides have featured it. Following the mid-course brake run is a very sudden drop. It's not a huge drop by any means, but it's a nice size, and even when the ride is trimmed, this drop is by far one of the best of the ride. It catches you by total surprise, suddenly yanking you down and trying to eject you from your seat. I'm still surprised by it sometimes, even though I've ridden this ride countless times. To me, this is the drop on the ride that really matches the ride's name. It feels like you're being thrown off a bull. The next airtime hill is decent, but I think this is where the ride starts to die out a tad bit. You make your way through a series of twists and turns. Some are more elongated, and some are a bit sharper and more sudden. The ride is generally pretty slow during all these moments, and I won't break them all up into detail, but I actually find this section to be really fun. It may be a bit slow, but it makes the ride feel much less repetitive and more unique. The best part of this section is definitely the right turn after that last small airtime hill, but overall, I always enjoy the second half. The ride usually lasts about 2 minutes, including the lift hill, depending on how fast it's running. This is another plus for me. I love a long ride. When the trims are off, which seems to be a very rare experience, I'd actually contest that the front row is the best place to ride. I got a front row ride about a month ago, and the wind in my face was pretty insane. The second half ran significantly faster than usual. At the time that I got those trimless rides, I enjoyed Raging Bull as much as, if not more than Diamondback and Orion, two of my favorite large-scale B&Ms at Kings Island. Without the trims, I still like it a bit more than Diamondback, but not quite as much as Orion. Based on the two types of experiences you can get on this ride, with or without trims, I'm feeling a 9 out of 10. In isolation, I really don't have any complaints, but when compared to other coasters I've been on, I think it's fair to say it's not a perfect ride. One more thing I want to commend is how smooth Raging Bull is. It was built almost 30 years ago, yet it's probably the smoothest ride in the park. I've never felt so much as a slight rattle in any seat. Overall, I love this ride, probably more than most others. I think it's one of the best B&M rides to date, and it's the ride I look forward to riding most when I visit this park. So that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this brief breakdown of Raging Bull. Comment down below how you'd rate it yourself, and like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. I'll definitely get around to making more like this in the near future. Thanks for watching.